2030 is a number, a date, a year that comes up and seems to bring together all these different subjects. If you look, for instance, at the last time they said the world has so many years to save the planet, then you'll hit 2030. Look at Kurzweil. He wants the process of the human brain being connected to AI by 2030, for that to be underway by 2030. Then you look at Agenda 2030, of course, the UN, which is basically the Great Reset in one form. So 2030 is a year where they want this to be really moving to a point where they believe it will be unstoppable. And that's why we have the period between now and then to bring an end to this. And that means that we have to put aside everything else and make this the absolute priority of our lives. If people say, oh, my kids are more important, well, actually, your kids are more important, but they are the targets of this whole conspiracy. So by standing up to this and refusing to acquiesce with this first, you're putting your kids first, you're putting your family first, you're putting the future first, putting everything first. So, we've got to move in far greater numbers. It's happening, but far greater numbers, from seeing it to ceasing to cooperate with it. You don't have to scream no, you just have to mean it. No, I'm not doing it. No, not doing it. And let's realize that whatever they want to throw at us in terms of intimidation is far, far worse and more sinister than anything else they can come up with in terms of intimidation. Well, you won't be able to travel. Oh, well, travel then. You won't be able to do this. Well, do it then. Do that. Don't do that either. I'm just not doing it. Whatever you try to intimidate me with, I'm not having this jab, because I know that's the end when I do. They want to divide and rule us, because it's a simple case of mathematics. If you go to the core of the core of the core of this global cult, you get them into a single room. And the vast majority of people that are imposing this fascism on the world have no idea it's being coordinated. They're just doing what they're told without question and believing somehow that it's justified. They don't censor with the hysteria that they do for a laugh and a bit of fun. And they don't even do it to posture their own illusory power, which is that which we give to them. They do it because they've got no choice. Their narrative is ludicrous. What they're asking us to believe and what they're asking us to do, telling us to do, is ludicrous. It's everything to do with control, and that's becoming more obvious to more and more people all the time. And therefore, they have to protect their ludicrous narrative in the only way they can, by preventing its exposure to the greatest audience that they can. But it can't be stopped if people are willing not to bow to their illusory power and not to bow to their intimidation. You get these celebrities, oh God, save us from celebrities, who are pushing the agenda, virtue signaling, because they know their careers are over if they don't. When people start to grow a pair and grow a backbone, those that haven't already, lots of people are pushing back on this, but there's vast, vast numbers that are not, and realize that this is not a game. It's not a phase. It's not something that's going to go away eventually. This is the cult running for home. And we've got to now stand up to this and say here and no further and start rolling it back. If we're not going to stand up and protect the kids, then what's the point? What self-respect is left? What dignity is left? Well, some of us have been pointing out for a long time that the control of the world is centralized, that there are networks of the global network in each country, and their job is to impose the will of the center of the network, the spider as I call it, on their particular country. And, you know, as I've traveled around the world, I've been seeing the same things being introduced in different countries, different cultures, basically in the same period, and some of the legislation even being worded the same. It's because it's centrally controlled. Well, you know, you can look for a solution, or you can remove the cause of the problem. And if you remove the cause of the problem must disappear because its cause is gone. And look through the entirety of known human history anyway, and you see the same recurring sequence. The few controlling the many by the many acquiescing to the few. And if you look at, as I was getting into earlier, if you look at this symbolic, or it's not even symbolic, it's very accurate, pyramidal hierarchy of human society, you've got the tiny few at the top, the inner core of this cult, which have this agenda for the constant centralization of power and the constant centralization of everything. And the more you centralize power, the more power the few have over the many at each point of centralization. That's why things like globalization are all being generated by this cult. So they impose their will, their agenda, on the level of the pyramid below them. And that level acquiesces to that imposition and imposes it on the level below them. And so it goes on. And it's very soon after you leave the peak of the pyramid that you are meeting levels of the hierarchy that have no idea there is a cult. They have no idea there is a peak of the pyramid. All they're doing is taking impositions from the levels above them and acquiescing to them and imposing them on the level below them. And then you come all the way down this pyramid in imposition, acquiescence, and you meet the mass of the population at the bottom of the pyramid. And if we, at that point, and this is the key, this is the answer staring us in the bloody face, if we, as a population, then acquiesce to the impositions of the level of the pyramid, ultimately being dictated to by the single room at the top, and we acquiesce to the impositions of government and authority and law enforcement, if we acquiesce to them, we create or complete a circuit between the tiny few at the top of the pyramid and the mass of the population. And that circuit of imposition, acquiescence means that those few people in that room have imposed their will on the entirety of the global population. So the answer is, we break the circuit. We break the circuit by not acquiescing with authority simply because it's authority. What is it telling us to do? What is it asking us to do? Does it make sense? No. Then I'm not doing it. Is it designed to impose control on my life and my family's life? Yes. No, I'm not doing it then. And it's this reflex action response to authority of obeying that is the cause of the few controlling the many. And it starts very early. You get people, young kids, you put them into school at the earliest possible age. And from that moment on, they are faced with an authority which, if you obey, well, life is kind of okay. I mean, you've not got a mind of your own, but you know, they leave you alone. But if you don't obey, well, there's a problem. There's a problem with your disruptive influence in the classroom. You're asking questions. You won't accept what you're being told. And very early on, right at the start of the school life, that you've got an authority figure who's telling you when you have to be there, when you can leave, when you can eat, when you can talk, when you can go to the toilet. and there are sanctions if you don't obey. And so the whole process has started to get you into a state of reflex action, acquiescence to authority, which they want you to take through your life. The way we receive information, the way we receive experience is a choice. Perception comes from your state of consciousness, and perception becomes behavior, and collective behavior is what we call human society. They don't want us to know that. Those who are awakening and seeing it because of their state of consciousness. What is going on here? What people in control of their own minds do is they take information and they filter it and process it into a conclusion. What great chunks of the population do today is take the information as a conclusion. When the media say this is what's going on, then that is not information to be processed. That is a conclusion to be absorbed. These are all traits of Wetiko. And how does this work? Wetiko is a band of frequency. It's a very low, dense band of frequency, which resonates to the frequencies of fear and all the emotional, low vibration emotional states around fear, anxiety, depression, resentment, all these low vibrational emotional states. And every thought and every emotion that we feel and we think goes out as a frequency. Fear is a dense, low, slow frequency. When people are in fear and anxiety, they say, oh, I feel so heavy today. Yes, because that's what those low, slow frequencies do to your energetic field. When people feel joy and love, they say, oh, I feel so light today. Yeah, because they're fast frequencies and fast wavelengths. So therefore, they impact upon your field in a completely different way. The point of Wetiko is to draw human consciousness into low vibrational states so that attachment, that assimilation can take place. Wetiko is not going once it's got influence. And what it does, it attaches to the lower levels of the subconscious, just beyond the five senses. It puts its perceptual traits into that subconscious level. And then they filter through to the five sense conscious mind. And at that point, people think they're having their own thoughts, their own emotional reactions, when actually they've been implanted and they're coming through from the subconscious. Wetiko is not going to influence those that it attaches to make them think about questioning anything. And so people simply stop processing information. They become like a software program. They just take downloads from statements and what have you, and it becomes their reality.
The way out is to name it. You have to be able to name it.
Yeah, why? Because Wetiko operates in the human subconscious. Once you make it conscious, it loses its power. It's exactly the same as subliminal advertising and subliminal images. I put a subliminal image in one of my books as an example of this. And it's about 4 plants growing next to each other. And you say to people, there's a subliminal image in that picture. And people look, oh no, I can't see anything. And then you point out that in the white bits between the plants, it clearly says the word. And they go, oh God, I didn't see that. Now here's the point. From that moment on, every time they look at that picture, the subliminal is the first thing they see, because they brought it out of the subconscious to the conscious, and therefore it loses its power. It's just a way of saying acknowledge its existence, because it's in the subliminal, the subconscious, that Wetiko operates, because it wants you to believe that your thoughts and your opinions are your thoughts and opinions. It doesn't want you to realize that actually they're being fed to you. They don't want us to know how our perceptions, through a process of attraction, like frequency attraction, our perceptions become our experience. So they don't want us to know that our perceptions create our reality. And the idea is that people are kept in ignorance of how they interact with reality and how they can control reality, how they can start living life instead of life living them, in their ignorance of how reality works.